got my relationship going with the museum and a couple other places. Silva and I both have a 40-year career in healthcare administration. Again, we moved here in 2013. I decided, didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in retirement, but I did want to take at least a drawing class. So there's an artist up in St. Charles called Tony and Friends that offers drawing classes. So I did take a 6-week drawing class with him. And then most importantly, I started attending studies with Fatima Figueredo, her studio called Fig Tree Studio. She's one of the best watercolorists I'm familiar with, and now I've seen many. And her use of colors and the way she paints is wonderful. And even better than that is the way she teaches and shares her knowledge. And she's helped me tremendously to understand watercolors and how to get the most out of them, and all the techniques to be used. So I can't thank her enough. I've also attended classes and demos from other artists occasionally, even a couple international artists. But I like to explore different ways of painting. I've participated in local art shows, a few awards that I'll mention later, and then the artistic donations to Geneva-based causes. I find that my art is most popular when I'm giving it away, and I don't mind at all. So, and I will do commissions occasionally. If somebody really has something they want me to paint that interests me, and if what I produce is good enough, that is a good reward for me if they want to commission me to do a piece like that. So again, I like different styles, and I like to try new things, new approaches. I call myself an emerging artist. I want to be forever emerging. I'm not sure I want to ever get locked into a particular style where everybody says, "Oh, that's a Dennis Gramlich painting." I like to share the experiences that I have with other people. So when I first started taking drawing classes, again with Tony and Friends up in St. Charles, it was a 6-week course. And when I started, I was barely able to draw a cartoon stick figure. And this was the last sketch I made in the class. And at least it turned out to be something where you could identify the subject and what it is. And from there, Alexia, my daughter, asked me to do cards for a fundraising event for the Cultural Arts Commission. Do hand-painted cards of local buildings and venues. And so I did a card series, and it was pretty well received at a fundraising event. And then I also used those photos and images to create cards and brought them around to the History Museum and a couple other vendors in shops in Geneva, and they were selling them. So that was a good start to my experience. Then the Geneva History Museum commissioned me to paint buildings that were turning 100 years old for their celebrations, for their annual fundraising celebrations. So these are two, one of the telephone building, one of the Tri-City Garage, that were then auctioned off at the fundraising events, and fairly successfully. Probably maybe the most successful painting I've had was when the Geneva History Museum asked me to paint the Harrington, which was celebrating a 25th anniversary, and we're having a fundraiser, and this painting was auctioned off at the fundraiser. It was the only item to be auctioned off, and it was a very successful auction and brought in a nice little piece of money for the museum. And it happened to be on Mr. Chaudine's birthday, and his daughter bought it for him. But So it was a great experience, and this painting was much harder than I thought it was going to be, because the three buildings, the three major buildings of the Harrington, are all at slightly different angles. So on this painting, sometimes you can divide a painting into 4 pieces or 8 pieces to make sure you get the proportions right. On this one, I think I had to do 72 small sections to make sure I got all the proportions right. But yeah, I was happy with the way it turned out. Maybe my most fun project was, again, a request from my daughter. At one of her fundraisers, she auctioned off a dinner party at her penthouse apartment or condo in Geneva. And she asked me to do a party of guest favors for the people that were coming. So I found the 20 most famous, I Googled the 20 most famous paintings ever, and then took a very small section of each of those paintings and tried to duplicate it. And then we had, I think these are 4 by 6 or maybe 6 by 6 small paintings that were then given to the people attending the dinner. And I was most happy when my very favorite painting ever is Starry Night by Van Gogh. But I was very happy to include the dogs playing poker, because that's I always look for an opportunity to paint dogs. One of the things I really like to do is paint on Yupo, which is a plastic-like material. It doesn't absorb the paint. And so you can swirl colors and mix them, and they don't lose their vibrancy. And then if you want to create an image of something, you can just wipe it off the plastic and then paint in an image. This one, I swirled a bunch of paint on the paper, and it looked to me like, oh, that looks like could be an Asian river market scene. So then I lifted the paint to put in the market person washing greens in the river, and then some boats. And this was, I was lucky enough to have this accepted to the History Museum's Kane County Juried Art Exhibition. And this actually won the Crowd Pleaser Award at the reception, which I was very encouraged by. And it sold, by the way, to a good friend of ours. Another thing I like to do is keep a journal. When we travel, usually with our daughter and her husband, Dave, we travel to we've had some wonderful trips, and we're really missing them at this year. But some of this was from an African safari we took, and I always try and take on an extended trip, I try and take a watercolor notebook so that I can paint or sketch or just keep a little journal of what we're doing. And it's always great fun. And in these times now, it's nice to go back through them and try and relive some of the experiences, and then also plan for the future. 3 of my favorites, I did an early painting, a portrait of Willie Nelson, and it turned out as well as I could have expected. And it was actually somebody, again, a friend bought that painting. And but I just at the early, this is quite a while ago, well, 2016, so it was one of my early pieces that I thought, well, this is something, maybe I have a small amount of talent. And by the way, if I do have any talent, I think I inherited it from my daughter, who is also a very good artist when she was younger and was more interested in it. But she still has an eye that helps me in many situations to figure out what to do with the painting. The middle painting here is a pen and ink of a piazza in Verona, Italy. I didn't really like pen and ink drawings until I actually did a couple. And then it turns out I really kind of enjoy it. You put the pen and ink down as a detailed sketch, and then you add the color. And sometimes the effects can be pretty dramatic and very nice. It's something I don't do often now, but when I do it, it's a lot of fun to do. And then the painting at the right, again, is the Yupo, where I swirled a bunch of paint on the Yupo material. It looked to me like a jungle scene, so I lifted the paint and put in a nice Mr. Leopard there. So, as a friend of mine used to say, enough about me, what do you think about me? And he always got a little laugh, and I can't hear you laughing hilariously, but anyway, when other artists tell me that watercolors are too hard, I always love to hear that, because, or that the size of this project was too hard. I often respond that I'm a Kennedy kid. When I grew up, John Kennedy was president, and we do things because they're hard, not because they're easy. And as Bobby said, we don't ask why, we ask why not. So that kind of was ingrained in me throughout the years, and I like to tackle the hard subjects, and sometimes it's successful, sometimes it isn't, but it's always a learning experience. And for me now, it's always fun. So about the 1st of May, Terry gave me a call and said, could I come out, stop by? And they had an idea they wanted to run by me. Now this is the museum's Crèche, and sometimes I'll use the word Presepio because that's the Italian word for Crèche. Or I might use nativity, but it all relates to this scene. And this is, remember what this looks like for those of you who haven't actually seen this. It's a 3-sided French provincial corner bed that it's housed in. And there are more than 40 pieces here that make up the History Museum's Crèche. And you see in the past they had just a fabric background. And so they said they wanted a painting in the background and instead of the fabric. And so we started thinking about that, and it was an enlightening event to see and the challenge, because the size of this thing is beyond anything I had ever tried. And as far as creches go, this is a pretty detailed and fairly large one. I've also seen them in Europe and the Art Institute in Chicago. And I think as far when it comes to creches, Mies van der Rohe, when he said less is more, and my wife tells me that a lot, it doesn't apply to creches. I think when it comes to creches, more is more, and the more detail and the more farm scenes and villages and elaborate articles you can put into it, it's just one of those things that it becomes more and more interesting and more beautiful. So remember this picture, because we won't see the completed image again until maybe later or next year, but this is what we had to work with. So the challenge and the commission is to create a 3-panel painting for the background of the museum, imagery consistent with 18th century Naples in Italy, of course, and that's where and when the Crèche was created. When I first heard they wanted to do a background, I assumed it was going to be the Holy Land, but no, it was going to be Naples, Italy, which I was extremely excited about because it's a much more interesting view, I think, and subject and content to work with. The measurement is huge, 4.5 feet high by 14.5 feet wide. The materials obviously had to be durable and something that could last for a long time. And one of the biggest challenges was, where am I going to do this? So Silva and I live in a fairly small condo, and this scale project wouldn't fit there. And then another thing we wanted to do was engage the community and get support with some kind of public view of the painting in progress. So the commission and the challenge, well, the solution then is to research 18th century Naples. Obviously, there aren't photos available. So I had to look at paintings and images, prepare value sketches and watercolor prototypes. This is always an important step. I'll talk about this a little more, but it's an important step to get invested in the subject and the project. Transition standard working medium materials from watercolor on paper to acrylic on canvas. Both Fatima, my daughter, said that I should switch to canvas and acrylics for the durability, and I think they advised me correctly on that. So we wanted to get high quality materials so that they would last. The workspace, my daughter suggested approaching Terry and saying, could I paint in their window? And Terry embraced the idea, and we went from there. And because I would have had to find some alternate studio if we couldn't do that. And then to develop a cost proposal so that I could at least recoup my cost and that it reflects my interest in supporting the mission of the History Museum and the ongoing operations. So, brief history of Naples, founded in 1600 BC by the ancient Greeks, conquered by Romans, Germans, Byzantines. It did start to have a flourishing trade in the 1600 or in 600 AD, and then the Normans captured it and it became part of Sicily. A couple other people captured it that I've never heard of. But then under the Spanish Empire in the 16th century, it became the largest city in Europe for a while. And then, of course, the plague hit and there was economic depression in the 17th century. And in 1734, it became part of the Kingdom of Sicily. The French occupied it for a while, various kings and short-lived revolutions in the early 1800s. And then finally, Garibaldi united Italy with Naples voting to join in. Again, my wife being Italian and spending a lot of time in Italy, it's interesting, and that whole area of Europe, how many different entities have dominated and conquered the countries, but each one has added some culture or a food product or something of value, and all that culture has built with it that makes it so interesting. But in historical perspective, Naples is old. I mean, 600 BC, it would have, in the year 4478 AD, Geneva will be as old as Naples is today. I mean, can you imagine what the world may look like, what Geneva may look like? This museum is going to be huge. And my big question is, will Kevin Burns still be mayor? I don't know. I hope so. Anyway, I can hear the laughter. The inspiration for the piece then is a painting I found by Claude Joseph Vernet, a pretty successful painter, a French painter, I believe, lived 1714 to 1789. And this is his Bay of Naples from the north. And this, it just, as soon as I saw it, I said, well, that is a 3-stage painting. The left portion is the city and the fortified walls. The middle portion is the bay with the city in the background, and then the right portion is Mount Vesuvius, and the ships coming in from the sea. So it was. I took some liberties with the perspective, of course, but the whole composition just lent itself to this project. So the history of the Neapolitan creche, it was developed in the 17th and 18th century. Again, Naples became known for their creches and this particular artistic endeavor. They constructed figures, costumes, tools. They added landscapes, towns. Again, the more is more. Farmhouses, pubs. The creches generally consist of two parts: the mistero, which is the actual nativity scene, and then the complementary diversorio, that is all the other images. I assume that's where the pubs are. So the creches were funded by royal courts and nobility. The History Museum's creche contains 40 plus figures, and they can be made out of terracotta, wood, fiber, silk, coral. And the figures for our creche here have recently been restored by Heidi Hallett, and it's a beautiful work of art, and she's done a marvelous job. I can't wait for you all to see it. So the historical perspective of this particular creche, it was created again in the 1700s, procured by Kate Rafferty and brought to Geneva, displayed in the Little Traveler. For those of you dialing in that aren't familiar with Geneva, it's one of the most favorite shopping destinations in Geneva. But it was, again, it was put into this French provincial corner bed. And then it was being stored in somebody's basement, and there was a flood on the Fox River, and it had to be rescued. If you ever get a chance to hear the whole story of how the creche was saved, Terry, Emma, and the folks here at the museum have a wonderful narrative. And then it was donated by the Little Traveler owners, Mike Simon and Alvin Rosenthal, to the History Museum. So to start this painting, again, we're back to doing value sketches. And this gets you invested, especially if it's a subject or a composition that is not out of your head or not out of a photo that you have taken or that I have taken. It's a little hard sometimes to get invested into the subject. But once you start doing sketches and you say, here's where my darks and lights are, and here's where the objects are going to be and the composition, it starts to become your own, and that's when you actually start the process. So for this particular job, since it was such a huge project, I did several prototypes. This is a watercolor on paper, excuse me, that I did, that actually I think Terry used to present to the board as to what the idea may end up looking like. And then I also gave this particular painting to the museum for their archives. But again, I was glad it wasn't the Holy Land, which would have been a lot of sand dunes and small villages, I assume. But and the other thing I had to imagine was that the creche itself, the objects, will certainly block some of the painting. So one of the things I had to do was decide whether I just wanted to paint around the objects or to paint a full painting that even with some objects being blocked. And I did choose the latter option because I figured if Terry decides in 100 years she wants to go with the scene with Bethlehem in the background, this painting may be able to stand on its own. So we started it, and I set up in front of the windows. Again, it was a very pleasant experience, and started laying base coats. I was here on Wednesday and Saturday afternoons. I started in early May, to acquire all the materials and doing the sketches. And then in mid-May, I actually started the paintings. And then, it was a good start to the project, and I was able to proportion the objects in the painting so that there would be a good display of the creche when it was all done, and yet put some details in, especially into the sides where it would show a little more. And I did take some liberties with the proportions in Vernet's painting, of course, and move the far shoreline up a little bit so it would show above the creche. And but those of you who are familiar with Michelangelo's David statue, you know that the hands are proportionately much bigger than the rest of the body. So I figured if Michelangelo could take those kinds of liberties, I could certainly do that with this particular painting. So getting into the details, it did take about 7 weeks to complete the painting, actually less time than I expected. Now that doesn't include all the time I was thinking about it and waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning saying I need birds or the water needs to be greener. But and so I would make notes or just lose sleep trying to say again I need to remember this in the morning. But again, I feel very fortunate that I found a passion. I call it a passion because I do lose sleep over the paintings I'm working on. And at this stage in my life, I love the passion and I love the opportunities to do this. And I'm grateful for even losing sleep over it. But you can also, from looking at these pictures, you can understand why my back hurt at the end of a couple hours of painting, because it was also bending over to do the paints. So the completed mural, the left panel, again, was the city with the fortified walls. I put in a little market scene. I took a lot of liberty here by putting in, even into the little market, a little shelf with some creches on, or some nativity scenes on the shelf that if they were popular for the rich, I'm sure that some of the poorer people probably had them also. But the left panel was the city and the incoming shoreline. This is where I originally put in like a sandy beach area, and Silva told me no, that it's a rocky coast around Naples. I think that's where somebody thought she was from Naples, but so I put in nice stone walls. So, and of course, since I never really took a lot of formal art classes, I do vacillate some places between Impressionism and Expressionism. Every once in a while, a little bit of realism and there's even some abstraction in the background. So this is the center panel. Again, with this will have mostly the creche in front of it. But it makes a nice backdrop for the creche, and I picked up some of the colors in the creche, and some of the detail was fun to put in. So the right panel, again, Mount Vesuvius, the boats, the ships coming in. My favorite detail in this is the fisherman casting a net in the lower right-hand corner. It's the one thing that, other than the birds, that gives it a little motion and a little activity. So this is the completed picture of the painting. Unfortunately, we aren't going to be able to display this with the creche. That's going to come at a later date. Just packing and unpacking the creche for very limited exposure at this point in time just doesn't make sense. But we did want to go ahead and put on this brown bag just so you could get an idea of what you can look forward to in the future. I did call this, I titled this Sunrise. It's the sunrise from the east in in the Bay of Naples. But since it's a background for the nativity scene, I changed the spelling to Sonrise. So let's look forward to the day when the creche can be displayed and we can see how one work of art embraces another work that, like a good marriage, makes both pieces stronger and better. One thing to look forward to at the next fundraiser event, I did do a 10 by 30 prototype of the Bay of Naples. And it turned out, I thought it turned out pretty good, and I donated it to the museum, and they are going to auction it off at one of the future fundraising events. One unexpected development from this project is I realized how much I enjoyed painting in the window and seeing people's reaction, especially little kids when they'd clap their hands sometimes. So I proposed to the museum that I continue to paint in the window, Geneva scenes in watercolor and a standard size. And then once the painting is completed, I would donate it to the museum. And we've done that so far. I've completed 12. They've sold 8, some of them even before they were completed. So it's a great arrangement. The museum gets a little revenue and publicity, and I get some positive feedback and activity during these strange times, which I certainly appreciate. So with that, I think we're ready for questions and answers, and Marky's coming in, so I'm masking up. Or at least questions. I don't know if we'll have answers.
So remember to ask a question, please click raise your hand, but I do see that we have a question in the Q&A, and it says from Lisa Hellman, will there be an online auction for the piece you donated so Fairhope residents have an opportunity to buy? We haven't figured that out yet, but that is a great question for Terry. But we haven't figured that out yet. We were planning to do the auction sometime next year. Hopefully it would be an in-person auction because hopefully we can all be in person again. But we'll see.
Well, Lisa's a good friend of mine. So Lisa, maybe if I'm at the fundraiser event, I can be your agent.
There you go. Right. Let's see. Oh, I do have a raised hand. Let me find you. Ah. Okay. Glorianne and Colin Campbell, you are unmuted.
Hello, Glorianne.
I think you're unmuted. Yeah, ask to unmute. Okay. Hello.
Yeah. Has it been mounted?
Glorianne, Colin. Oh, I heard them. Glorianne, Colin, do you have a question?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Is it?
That's them. They're unmuted. I don't know. Does anyone else have a question?
Glorianne, I can hear you. It's Terry.
Okay. My question is,
we can't hear her.
I
has
know.
the mural been mounted? That was what I.
Yes, it has. It's been mounted safely onto the bed and it's ready to roll.
That's what I thought. I was just curious.
That sounds on.
Volume turned up? Yeah.
Oh, so everyone else can hear them. What are they asking? Can you? Since apparently we can't hear you, but everyone else can. We're going to find out what you're.
I'll take care of it if there's any more. I'm at home, self-quarantining, but I'm with you guys. There were some nice comments. I don't know if you were able to see some of those as well in the chat. Lisa Hellman said, love that pic of you, Dennis, in the beginning. And they said hi to Dennis Silva Monaco's. And they were laughing at the appropriate time.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good.
And Jenny Wagner, one of our board members, thank you, Dennis. The mural was beautiful. I enjoyed the presentation and watching you paint over the year. And then Susan Lipinski, cheers from a fan in New York City. I too have a beloved daughter in Geneva. Your work is lovely and ethereal. You must keep going.
Ethereal.
Ethereal.
Thank you.
So you're getting some great praise from all over, even to New York.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dennis. They'll be posting more paintings that Dennis is doing each week or each month, I should say, in the window. So look for more on our online store, and you can buy them, and we will ship them to New York or anywhere.
Right. I'm working on Rain Man at the train station right now.
Perfect.
Does anyone else have any questions? Oh, there's something in the Q&A. Oh, what is important for self-taught artists to know, from Susan Lipinski?
Oh boy, I don't, to take lessons, to find somebody like Fatima, or there are a lot of good artists that give lessons. You know, and there are good books, and there's online things. But I would say just paint if that's what you're doing, if you're painting, because I think there's some artists I know that I'm not sure they had any formal training, and they're wonderful. So I would just say, just start and do whatever you can do, and try and find maybe a mentor or somebody to give you feedback, but just keep working at it and keep doing it. What if it's fun to you, just keep doing it.
And there are a few more comments. Fantastic presentation. Your agent Alexia steered you right.
Thanks, dear.
From Mary Monaco, huge fan of Dennis's work. Lucky to own 2 of his pieces. From Mimi in Texas.
Mimi and I forget her dog's name. I painted her dog.
Oh.
Portrait of her dog.
Oh. Then we have from Trish. Thank you, Dennis, for sharing your talents with the Geneva History Museum. Great presentation. Oh, from Fatima. Love the presentation.
Thank you, Fatima.
Oh, and question from Peggy Sutton. What size is your Harrington painting?
Harrington was I think it was just 11 by 14. They're all the ones I'm doing in the window now are 11 by 14 because it's a standard size. You can buy pre-cut matting. You can buy pre-made frames if you don't want to spend a lot of money. So 11 by 14 is a standard size, and the other couple commissions that the History Museum gave me for the 100-year-old buildings, we settled on that size because it's a good, comfortable size. You don't you can still get a good painting, but it's significant enough to be appreciated.
And we do have another raised hand. Let's see if we can hear you. From Janine, I'll allow you to talk and ask to unmute.
I'd just like to comment and say that I love the colors that you chose. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. They go well with the Crèche figurines. I think it's beautiful, that sort of reddish, rusty ochre background. It's lovely. It's just beautiful, a beautiful augmentation to the scenes with all the figurines in the front. And then you had a title of Sonrise. It's instead of sunrise. Was that Italian for smiling or something?
No,
Smile?
it was just sunrise, S-O-N, with as the Son of God.
Oh, okay.
Sunrise.
Because there's also an Italian word for smile, sonrire. Sonrire. Oh. Okay, you probably know that. Well, thank you, great presentation. I saw you through the window in the beginning.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate your comments about the colors, because it was certainly a consideration to try and make sure that the 2 pieces of art, my painting and the Crèche, work together.
I'm sure they will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it looks like we have another question from Lisa Hellman, and you should be able to talk.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Lisa.
Dennis, what a fantastic presentation. Really, really good. I know
Thank you.
Alexia helped you with that, and I know you were nervous. I think you did a great job.
Oh, I don't get nervous anymore, but Alexia was a great help.
I'm glad you guys did this via Zoom. It's so nice to be able to participate from the lovely sunny coast of Alabama here.
I hope it's sunny.
Well, good to see you. Thanks so much, Dennis. What a great painting. And I can't wait to see it when it's all together.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, Lisa.
You're welcome.
We have another question from Peggy Sutton. Will we be able to see the background again? If you want to see it right now, yeah, we can move to it. I can share the screen really quick. This is actually going to be recorded.
What she was saying?
So the background, but I can't share the screen again.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So this will be recorded and put on our website. Terry will email it out to everyone. So you'll be able to see it on there.
And just a warning, I thought it was automatically being recorded, so I missed the first 2 minutes. My apologies. It should have
Well,
recorded.
that was the best part.
It was just me, it's fine.
It's like- But I will share that with all as soon as the recording is finished. My apologies for missing the first 2 minutes.
All right, does anyone else have any more questions or comments? There's someone now. All right. Well, if no one else has any questions, then I guess we'll.
Well, thank you for your nice comments and for your support for the History Museum.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.